Hello everybody and welcome back to Chef Dad, just an average dad making amazing meals for family and friends. What's on the menu for today? A roasted pork, or lechon like we like to call it in my family, traditional Puerto Rican meal for the holiday season. Super easy to make, super fun, not that hard. That's the concept behind all my meals. Not hard, but amazingly delicious. Start off with the ingredients. We're gonna go with salt, some average sea salt, a nice mesquite rub, the age-old secret to all Hispanic households, adobo powder form. If you're Hispanic, you know you have a bottle somewhere in the house. Probably have a couple bottles. Also some minced garlic. You know I love my garlic. Plus garlic powder. We're gonna garlic a lot here today. Also, some olive oil to coat the pork to make sure we have all the seasoning adhere to it. Plus Corona Premier. It's already in there marinating, but I've already marinated myself, so we're good to go there. And another secret recipe, adobo mojo liquid form. So if you're Hispanic, you know what the mojo is. It's amazing seasoning and liquid form. We're gonna be injecting this into the pork for some amazing flavors. So what I did to make this nice and easy, because who likes long, boring videos? Not me, I always lose interest. So I've already done all the prep work. I'm gonna go through it with you though to explain how everything was done. So for the mojo itself, okay, you're gonna need one injector. Find them at your local grocery stores. Also what you're gonna need, I'm going with 12 pounds of pork butt. I have a work function tomorrow and I volunteered to make the protein, so I'm going with roasted pork because hey, it's freaking good. So we're gonna inject my mojo into the pork butt. Very simple to do. Get yourself 1 cup. Get yourself some mojo. Do not shake it. All you want is the liquid out of the bottle. Mojo has seasoning inside of it. The reason why you don't want the seasoning into the cup, because as you pull that mojo into the injector, if you have that seasoning in there, you're going to clog it. It's going to make the job extremely difficult to do. So as you open it, don't shake it, just pour it in. And all you're going to do is you're going to take your injector, dip it in, and you're going to inject the entire pork butt. Okay, this pork butt in particular has 2 different layers to it. So if you can see here, I can open it up. All right, so it has 2 layers. So what I went ahead and did was I injected the bottom portion, top and bottom and sides. Closed the flap on it, and then I also injected the entire top. The reason why you inject the pork is because that seasoning is going to get inside the fibers of the meat. And as you bake it, it's going to help keep that meat moist and tender. Plus, it's also going to add amazing flavor that you would not get if all you did was just season the outside. So we're seasoning the pork butt from the inside and the outside for hella flavor, okay? Inside, outside, just not the outside, inside and outside. So get yourself an injector, get yourself a bottle of mojo, pour it into a cup, liquid only, leave the seasonings out if you can, inject it all over. So I injected this pork butt about 24 times, both layers, top, bottom, sides, and everything else. Now, the most important thing about the pork butt is, I got mine from my butcher, who I've been going to for over 20 years, Johnny G. You guys are awesome. Bloomingdale, Illinois, been going there for over 20 years. He knows what I like, and he gives me exactly what I'm looking for. So when you get a good pork butt, you're gonna have a nice layer of fat on the bottom. You want that layer of fat, for the reason is, as you bake this, that layer of fat is gonna melt, and it's gonna rise the steam up, and it's gonna help keep that pork butt moist. But we're also gonna add beer to the bottom of the pan to also help keep it moist. So you got a lot of things going on. So by the time this is done baking, you're gonna have a lot of juice or gravy at the bottom of this pan. We're gonna dump it out. We're gonna save it for later. Cook time for this is gonna be approximately 6 to 7 hours at 275. At 12 pounds, more than likely, it's gonna be a full 7 hours, maybe even closer to 8, all right? When I'm done, I want this pork to just rip apart with 2 forks. That's how easy this should be. Now, my roasting pan, I've had this thing forever. Get yourself a good roasting pan. You don't want to skip on your meat. You don't want to skip on your roasting pan. You skip on your meat, it's going to taste like crap. Skip on your roasting pan, it's going to cook like crap. Invest in what you're cooking. My particular roasting pan has a tray I can lift out. See how nice and easy that is? What this is going to give me the ability to do is, once this pork butt is done, I will pull it out. It's going to help me scrape that layer of fat, or what fat is left, off. Okay? You can ask anybody that's ever had it. There's no fat in the pork whatsoever. It's all lean meat, just full of flavor. So you make yourself a nice pan with a nice tray that you can pull out. Plus the pan also sits off the bottom about 1/4 inch. Reason why you want that, that's where your Corona Premier is going to come into play. We'll go through all this in 1 second. So what I went ahead and did already, I already seasoned everything up. I injected it about 24 times, went through 1.5 cups of mojo being injected into the pork butt. After that was done, I took my olive oil, just drizzled a little bit all over the pork butt, and then I worked it in, giving it a nice layer. Then I started out with salt. Not a huge fan of salt, as I've mentioned before. I'm putting a very thin layer of salt on there. Move on to the adobo. Nice thick layer of adobo, okay? You can't over-season pork when you're roasting it. The reason being is all the seasoning is going on the outside. You're not putting any seasoning on the inside per se, except for the injectable that you just did. So when this is cooking, this is going to form a crust on the outside. And when you go to shred it, as you shred it, all the seasoning that's on the outside is actually going to help season the meat that's shredding from the inside. So you can't have enough. So you want a nice, good, thick layer of adobo on the outside. Same thing with the mesquite. Get yourself a nice layer of mesquite on the outside of it. And don't forget, open up that pork butt if you have layers. You want to make sure you're seasoning the inside layer plus the outside layer, okay? Your garlic powder, generous amount of garlic powder on as well. Once we got our seasonings on there, it's time to move on to getting that good base underneath it to keep it nice and moist. I went ahead and already dumped in almost a whole bottle. I had to marinate the chef as well. If we're gonna marinate the meat, gotta make sure you marinate the chef. So, Corona Premier. I dumped the entire bottle, again, almost the entire bottle, on the bottom. Plus, I went ahead and I used 2 nice heaping spoonfuls of garlic. Once I put the Corona Premier, once I put the garlic in there, I gave it a good shake. I spread everything evenly throughout the bottom of the pan underneath the pork. So as that bakes and I put my lid on, all that steam is going to be rising. The beer, the fat that's dripping off the pork butt, the garlic, it's all going to be coming back up and then back down. That's what it's going to create the moisture. That's going to give you that nice, tender, lean, amazing flavor from the pork that you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you exactly what this looks like. And again, I always say food is sexy because food is sexy. If you take a nice look at that there, okay, you can see all the seasonings are ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here. This is going to bake for about, like I said, 7 hours roughly at 275. We want to go low heat. When this is done, I'm going to check it with my thermometer. It should be right at about the 160 to 165 degree mark. That way I know it's cooked throughout. That way I know when I go to put those 2 forks in there and start shredding it, it's going to shred super easy. Okay, so let's give a quick recap. Salt, adobo. Every Hispanic household has that. A little bit of mesquite rub. Doesn't matter what mesquite rub it is. Make whatever you want out of it. I'm using Red River Ranch mesquite rub. My buddy turned me on to it. Garlic powder. Any garlic powder. Minced garlic for the bottom. Mojo. Any local grocery store that has an ethnic now is going to carry it. Corona Premier. Doesn't have to be Premier. You can use any beer you want. Just remember, any beer you want. I like using Premier. And my olive oil. Olive oil is going to be for the top of the pork butt before I put the seasoning on there. Give it a nice layer of olive oil, then I'm going to throw all my seasoning on there so they adhere nicely. Once this is all said and done, I'm going to let it sit for about 2 hours. I'm going to let everything soak in. I'm going to let that injected mojo that I did settle into the fibers of the meat. It's going to make it taste amazing. So I'm going to cover it up with my cover. I'm going to refrigerate it for about 2 hours. Then I'm going to throw it in at 275. Next time you see this pork, I'm going to be pulling it apart. It's going to be so tender. And then we'll go on from there as to how we're going to prep it after that. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take the juice that's out of here before we shred it. We're going to separate it into a bowl. And we're going to come back and we're going to dump it back in once we have everything shredded. And once we remove all that fat out of there. Don't forget, the reason why I have that tray that I can lift out of there is because to make it easy for me, that bottom layer of fat that the pork has on there, I'm going to scrape all that off. I'm going to put the meat back in. I'm going to shred it. Then I'm going to take that leftover juice that was made. I'm going to pour it back in. We're gonna add a couple more seasoning if we need it, okay, if we need it. Again, the salt, not a huge fan, but once it's done cooking, if you do need more salt, that's the time to add it. So I'll be back roughly in about 7 hours. See you soon. Okay, and we're back. Here's what the pork is gonna look like now that it's been cooking for about 7 hours at 275. I have that nice dark outside of the pork, and watch how tender this is gonna be. I haven't touched it yet. And also look at the juice that we have in here. That's a combination of the fat from the pork and the beer all coming together. I'm gonna pour a little bit over the top. I have my bowl, my ladle. I'm gonna separate some of the juice. I'm gonna pour it back in once I remove the bottom layer of fat like I talked about. So take some of this out, and then I'm gonna shred it up and show you guys how nice and tender it is and how easy it's gonna pull apart just with 2 forks. All right, got the majority of that pulled out. If you watch here, just nice and easy, just spreads apart. That's how a nice, slow cooked, roasted pork should pull apart. It's nice and dark on the outside from that crust from the seasonings, and then tender on the inside. It's just coming apart, just with the fork. And then as I get to the bottom, that's where my layer of fat's gonna be from the pork shoulder that didn't melt off. So I'm gonna wanna take that, and I'm just gonna separate it, and that's gonna get tossed. Lift it up a little bit. And tilt it. Pork got out, oh, fell back in. All right, and take a look on the bottom here. If I get a good shot for you guys, you can see that layer of fat and how the pork is just falling off now. So I'm gonna continue to scrape it off. You can just see how it's just falling off. Nice and tender. Work my way all the way around the pork here. It's just coming right apart. It's exactly what I was looking for. Now I got majority of everything off. I'm just gonna tilt this up, drain everything that's still stuck on here. This is the pork that's stuck to that layer of fat on the bottom, so I'm gonna continue to scrape it. And then I'm gonna remove the tray. And as you can see, this is working out perfectly because there's that layer of fat that I wanna take out. So I'm gonna remove my tray. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab my tongs and my garbage. I'm just gonna start grabbing this layer of fat. I'm just gonna toss it because that's what we don't want. Keep pulling the fat out of it. As you can see, there's not that much of it in here. Pretty much all cooked away and created all this juice on the bottom. So I just want to make sure there's really nothing left in here, which there really isn't. And that's it. You can see how tender the pork is. It's just all falling apart. You can see all the juice that's in there. That's what we're going to want. And there you have it. My 7 hours slow roasted pork, Spanish style. Give it a try. If you like it, don't forget, give me that thumbs up and subscribe.